today I'll be doing the rear wheel bearing replacement, and I just took the wheel off, and so I'll have to in order to take the axle out, you're gonna have to take off some other stuff. Like for example, you're gonna have to disconnect the brake line, and there's a ABS sensor in the back, and you're gonna have to take the e-brake or drum brake cuts out of the way, and e-brake cable needs to also come out as well. So I just took the guts out of the e-brake and then the cable out of the way right there, and then I held the brake caliper onto the frame with a clamp. Yeah, so e-brake cable was held with the 10mm hex bolt, and that's the ABS sensor. It's just simply held with one 10mm bolt as well. So I just put that aside. And that's the guts from the e-brake. And then the axle bearing is actually held with just 4 nuts. So take those, and I kind of pounded the axle a little bit with a rubber mallet, and then they do come out. And then as you're pulling it off, there's a differential like lubricant oil is gonna drip, so you're gonna have to have a drip pan or something at the bottom. And then this is the axle that's out. So we'll be working on pulling the axle bearing out. So first of all, what you do is take the retainer clip that's sitting. It can be a little tricky if you don't have a right tool, but I just ended up using a pointy tip plier, and it sort of worked okay. There you go. So that's the clip. And then you're gonna be setting up the pull-up tool. So this tool I needed to use the adapter plate for my particular axle bearing. So I'm putting the adapter plate first, and then I'll be mounting the main puller tool on top of this. And this tool was hitting on one end, so I couldn't really simply torque it down all the way. You kind of have to, for me, I needed to kind of balance out the plate to make sure it's level relative to the axle. Otherwise, as you press it down, as you put it on the hydro press, then the force is not going to be distributed equally. So you're going to have to make sure that the tool is square to the bearing, or center to relative to the axle. So that's all set up. It's actually mounted on the hydraulic press. So I had a 20-ton press set up in my little shed, and just like that. So the puller tools held onto the hydro press frame or cage, and the press itself is going to be pressing down on the axle. So the bearings will stay with the press, and then the axle basically drops straight down. So you're going to have some kind of towel or padding underneath it, just in case. And as you press it, you would hear a little crack or bang noise as it starts to slide out. So it's already sliding out slowly here. Yeah, this one I needed to try a few, 3 times probably, because I could see whole thing wasn't set up quite square. So I started seeing axle kind of leaning to the side here a bit, and it was kind of scary. So I needed to readjust and try it again. and it wasn't quite straight down, like, so I need to do it again. And this third time I tried, as I pressed on it, everything looked square. It was only going straight down, so I decided to just push forward, and it worked out okay. Yeah, there's a lot of force going in, so if something looks sketchy, then maybe it's a good idea to just stop and make sure everything's nice and square. Everything is looking good before you go further. So the axle dropped at this point, and so I'll be sliding out the axle here. So the inner lace, one of the inner lace from that wheel bearing is gonna be stuck with the axle as you do this. So I've seen some people use like a bearing separator tool and then press it out. And this time I didn't have the separator, like a jaw tool. So I decided to just grind it and then smack it with a chisel, which you will see in a second here. So, and then all the puller tool come out. Oh, wait. Okay, so that's the retaining sleeve. So there's a C-clip, retaining sleeve, and then there's a washer, like a dished washer, that's gonna come out. So this is like the retaining sleeve. Yeah, you wanna keep this without damaging it, because you can't reuse this one. Otherwise, it's kind of it's a little pricey from Toyota dealer. Okay, so this is like a dished washer you also have to hang on to. So 3 pieces that sits on top of the wheel bearing, and that are reusable. There's a little bit of dish shape to it, so the direction kind of matters, so you have to remember to keep it in order. And then this is one of the bearing inner lace that come out as you press it out. So this one I kept it because I ended up using it to pound the axle seal later on at the end. Then I decided to separate the brake shield from the wheel bearing. Sometimes I've seen people just pounding it with a rubber mallet and just split out really easily. Like mine was kind of corroded and rusted, and it was a little sticky. So I kind of pressed it out with a press. Like that. I know. At least one of the nut, the carriage bolt, they were really stuck with the altogether. So what I did was I used the duct socket like that, and then just pressed it out. So now it's time for me to grind this. And I had a angle grinder cutter with like 4.5-inch disc, but I really didn't want to nick on anything, so I just used the Dremel. Took my time, and I ground it down to about 1/3 of a thickness, I guess. I really didn't want to risk scoring the axle, so I just wanted to play it safe. So I basically cut like an X notch to it. So I'm just doing this is my second scoring. Yes. Yeah. And then I went through two of these little cutting discs, which is not a big deal, I guess. Yeah, and then I had a little thin stainless plate just to protect it from going any further. Okay, so I'm whacking it right now with a chisel. Okay, so as it gets, it's going to get a like hairline crack as you pound on it, and as soon as you get the hairline crack, you would notice to see that inner lace kind of starts spinning around, sliding around. So you can't really see it at this point, but once it starts moving, that means you got a nice hairline crack on that on the lace. And you can kind of push away and then rotate it as you rotate it, kind of at the same time. Yeah, so that was okay. I was kind of nervous about this, but I wish I had a bearing separator. I've seen people do it. Like, looked pretty easy. Yeah, you see the hairline crack in that. You can see it in the video there. But this process probably only took me like 20 minutes altogether. So it's not too bad. I mean, like, it's very doable. Like, yeah, I don't mind doing it again this way. And then there's a outer oil bearing seal left at the very bottom. So the new wheel bearing you get, they actually do come with this thing already. So you're gonna have to just remove it. And I'm ready to put everything back together. So the bearing was really seized onto that brake shroud, so I put a good amount of anti-seize on there. And then I'm gonna get this dished washer on top of this thing. So you want the inner circle like kind of pointing upwards. And then you get the retaining sleeve on top of it. And then just to keep the bearing from dropping off, just to keep the shroud dropping from that bearing, I just put a nut, just hold it together there. And then you get the washer, and then you get the sleeve, and then you're ready to just press it back on. So I have a little like stubby pipe that's pressing on the inner lace of the bearing. And I didn't really have a little sturdy solid rod that can sit on top of the axle. So I used that little square hollow thing, but it ended up bending, so I ended up using just the impact drill socket set, one of the pieces that's in the box. That kind of worked pretty good. So it's almost on there. So you want to press it all the way down until the C-clip easily goes in, like slide in there. And I just ended up using a pipe to just pound it on, like so. And then you just want to make sure the C-clip's on there with enough room, it's not tight in there. And this is a tool I made, I makeshifted just to pull out the axle oil seal. Yeah, I would just wedge it in there and just basically, what's that? Like a puller hammer, sliding hammer jig. And then axle bearing is there. Okay, and then reassemble is basically backwards of taking off. And then rebleeding of the brake just to pop the air out. That's it. Thanks for watching.